Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of DevRel Show with Fred. Fred being me. Really happy to be here, really excited as always. But now there's something special today. It's episode 50, meaning that, it's been 50 times that I'm doing that with amazing people, with amazing guests. And today is not different. But before moving to my guest, I won't name them all. You can go on the YouTube playlist first because I don't remember everyone who was in the show. I have a weird memory with name, but that show would not exist without the guest. Actually, that would be pretty boring without the guest. The guests are making the show. So thanks to every one of the actual and previous guests who've been on the show and the future one. This is the only way that the DevRel Show can exist. This is the only reason also that the DevRel Show exist. I mean, it's me having fun with other developer advocates or people being in DevRel. So just excited. In my mind, 50 was a milestone. And hopefully I'm going to have 50 more episodes. I'm going to reach 100. I have enough guests and a wait list to do that. So it's just a case of like me doing it. But anyway, thanks also for everybody who are joining either live, which is always appreciated. I love having comments or questions from people when we're doing the live stream. Also, I understand this is during the weekday. Not everybody can join during the show when the show is live. So also thanks to the people who are watching the recording, the viewers. If I want to be honest, I would still do that show even if nobody was watching it, because again, it's me having fun with the guests. But the bonus is that it seems like there's value for other people. So that's a good added bonus for me. So on that note, I'm with Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great and happy to be here. And congrats on 50. That is an accomplishment. There's you get to a number and you just have to keep going, right? I mean, someone says, "How did you get there?" Well, I just didn't quit, which sounds either trivial or really deep, but just keeping on going. It's such an important part of life sometimes.
That is true. No, so thanks. I appreciate it. And I think was not a better way to celebrate that 50 milestone with you as a guest. Really happy to have you as a guest. Funny enough, and I will let you introduce yourself right after, but funny enough, Jeff and I, we've been connected on LinkedIn for more than 10 years. We've had video chat. We connected on social media. So we quote unquote known each other for a long time, but we only recently met for the first time in person in another thing funny, it was in Chile, in Santiago, for Nerdearla, the Nerdearla conference. So it was great to finally meet you in person. With that said, who are you?
Let's see. So it was awesome to meet in person, and that was a really fun conference. I always love these community organized events because the energy level is just unmatched. It's super amazing. So my background, I'm Jeff, and I've been an Amazon employee since 2002. In August, I will hit the 24-year mark, which is actually to me personally amazing that I actually managed to last in one place doing more or less the same kind of things for 2.5 almost decades now. And I've had this really fun hybrid role. I think I was doing DevRel before it was really a thing even. And for my entire life, I've always very much enjoyed understanding things deeply and then explaining them to audiences. And in Amazon terms, we always call it diving deep and trying to get to know your subject matter. And then when you find something you really enjoy, my friends and family know this, they can't shut me up about it because I just have to keep talking because it's something that I think, my always thought is, well, if I find this really interesting and cool and useful and powerful, maybe you will as well. And I think that's almost the heart of being in DevRel, is this finding value and getting some satisfaction out of sharing things.
Yeah, I really love that definition. I think it fits what I have in mind when it comes to DevRel. Just before I ask you, because you said you've been at AWS for close to 24 years, just before we move to that topic, I I still want to talk about Nerdearla because, as you said, that was a great conference. It's done in South America. It's run by the community, but like at a professional level. I've done a lot of conferences in my life, and like like how they run the conference for the last 10 years, it's pretty amazing. So I was wondering, are you going to go to the next one in Argentina? Are you going to be there?
I haven't been invited to that one yet. I know I'm going to Argentina in September for an AWS Community Day. Okay. So I'm looking forward very much to that. I'm actually going to manage to visit Guatemala and Argentina as part of the same trip. So Central America and South America.
Nice.
Not close to each other, but one's definitely on the way to the next. So super looking forward to that trip.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, no, that's great. It's also something for me where like most of the time with my job, I was going either like in North America or, like Europe or Asia. I was not doing that much to South America. First, I think it was just like I don't speak the language most of the time, and it's a little more difficult. But at the same time, it happened that it was not a focus or geography focus of the company or employees that I had. But now it's great that like I started to have that opportunity to connect with the communities in Central America, South America, which are just amazing all around. Like everywhere I've been so far, they're just great. I'm looking to go to. I'm going to be at the Argentina one. I'm also going to be to do the Mexico City also at the end of the year near Nerdearla. I'm going to be there. And unrelated to that conference, I will also be in Costa Rica for another conference related to Moodle, which is an open source LMS. So yeah, I'm going to also have fun to connect with local communities there.
Yeah, so Fred, one of the interesting things I've noticed over the course of my time in DevRel and in tech is there was a time. So I started in tech really early. I was 17 years old and working in a computer store here in Seattle basically I was supposed to like be unpacking all the books and magazines and putting them on shelves for our customers, but I actually was reading them and absorbing them and became the tech expert really quickly. So I've been in tech for a long time, but the interesting thing is there was many years where people would be living somewhere in the country or somewhere outside the US, and they'd say, well, all the cool stuff is happening in Silicon Valley, and like step N+1 of my career is I got to get to Silicon Valley because like that's where all the cool stuff is happening, and everywhere else is just like the world hasn't caught up. That area hasn't caught up with Silicon Valley yet, and that like frantic desire to migrate, I think has really changed in the last, I want to say 15 years or less, and that people are building and innovating and succeeding wherever they happen to be around the world. And sometimes they're like, oh, we want to clone or imitate Silicon Valley somehow. If that's the way they want to do it, that's great. But every one of these different places that you and I are so fortunate to be able to visit, they've all got their own slant on how do we educate developers? How do we empower them? What is the kind of like the incubator model and the financing model, and how do they find their customers and how do they market? It's much more interesting to me that there are a lot of different ways and places and routes to success versus we all must make the pilgrimage to Silicon Valley and to Sand Hill Road, and we can only succeed there.
I totally agree. I assume I assume that show is going to be me replying most of the time. I totally agree, because I think we're aligned on a lot of ways of thinking when it comes to DevRel, seeing what you've done in the last couple of years and knowing what I've done or what I talked about or I wrote. But I'm really happy about that. I think on the startup level, if you want to raise money, you still need to be a little bit part of Silicon Valley type of things. I think you can raise more money, but outside of that, really having strong tech community, it's amazing because, one of the things that I've seen in the last couple of years that everybody that were in other countries that were moving in San Francisco or around, they kind of adapted to the local culture. But when they do that, there is some benefit, but there is also some loss. The fact that we're privileged enough to go to different countries and talk to local communities, local tech communities with their own culture, their own ways of doing things. It opened up a stream of possibility, and it's great to be able to connect and understand the local communities and work with them in the way that they work day to day. So for me, it's like it's beneficial from a professional point of view. If I want to be honest, on a personal point of view, it's also super beneficial for me because I was able to learn about new culture through the tech community. I was able to also, work with other really passionate people. There are communities where, like, once you're a friend with them, it's for life, and they're super involved within your community. And they're gonna, if they love your product, it's also for life. Like, they're gonna be virtual evangelists for you, and they're gonna help you advocate about like the cool things that you're doing. So, like, trying to put everyone in the same place, I think it has its use at some point. Maybe
I always, every time I go to some new place, I thoroughly enjoy meeting the local developer population, and I always just come back with optimism for them and for the world and for the whatever part of the world they represent. I come away with some optimism for the next generation, and there's just better perspective of the world is like 99.9% filled with good people doing positive things, and it's the 0.01% that cause all the trouble and get all the attention sometimes. And it's refreshing to just realize there's good people everywhere, and that they're all like cool ideas and fire in their belly to do something amazing, and they want to change the world. They want to build something awesome. They want to have a good future for themselves and their family, and be fortunate and safe and prosperous, all the like the basic things. And to just realize those are fundamental, and you've got that shared understanding just about anywhere you go. At the same time, and I think your tagline reflected this a bit. You said, the DevRel show can be addictive, right? Which is kind of a nice little play on words and a little bit humorous there. The thing that worries me the most as I go from place to place is, and especially being older by a generation and sometimes almost two generations in the audience, you never know what of your local like cultural identity and knowledge and memes and jokes and cultural references. You never know which ones of those are going to be understood and appreciated by the audience, and versus like which ones are like, oh, this guy's out of touch, or he's way too old, or he has no clue that we've never even heard of that meme or that TV show or that artist, whatever. It's a really interesting challenge where you don't want to be generic. You want to be relevant. You certainly don't ever want to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. So like, but sometimes like a well-chosen meme can convey something so perfectly, but you're never sure, like, is this going to work or not, right?
Yeah.
So, because humor is the hardest thing to convey across languages and cultures and generations.
I know the feeling. I mean, like my type of humor, I'm doing a lot of like self-deprecating type of humor, but I'm also like to pick on people, but like it's always like done with love. And I try to find the people that I know won't be offended by that. It's like in some culture, they look at me and they hear me and they're like, this guy is rude. And I'm like, I'm so not rude, but like I understand that like in your culture, I may be seen like that. So as you said, like there is a great challenge about that. You need to adapt. I think it's part of the role too, but like also understanding that, I think it's beneficial because, like how I see DevRel is like, yeah, we talk to a lot of people. Like we do a lot of like from us or the company to the people, but like it's a two-way street. Like my job is also to represent the developers internally and be sure that like they are here. We heard them and to be sure that like, the product is going in the right direction and really solve their needs. And to be able to do that, it's really hard if I live in Canada and I just stay in Montreal in Canada and I don't learn about other culture and I don't understand how they're thinking and how they're working day to day. So it's hard for me to go back and try to help the product team if that the only vision I have of like the tech industry or how people work is based on like just my own little world. So again, I think it's a great privilege, but I think it's a beneficial for the role to be able to do
that part of that. You just described the part of DevRel that not everybody grasps as part of our job description. That it's pretty clear that part of what we need to do is to take information from within our org and get that out to the community. But equally important is to just get out there in the community and listen to what they have to say and bring that back to our org. And I often find that showing up at customers with nothing more than my pad of paper and my pen and saying, I can tell you all kinds of stuff, but I'd be much more thrilled to just be able to listen to you. And who are you, and what are you up to, and what are the challenges, and what are the obstacles, and what are you building, and how can we serve you better? Much more interesting conversation than here's XYZ latest stuff that we built for you.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And speaking of that, the job and everything. Oh, first, sorry about that. There's Nightfly 89. Always nice to see you. Thanks for joining the show again. And yeah, hopefully you're gonna have as much fun as we have doing the episode. So yeah, I just wanted to go back. It just made me thought about you've been doing that role for a long time. Two things about that. First, yeah, nearly 24 years at the same company. For me, it's mind-blowing. It's amazing. I wish I was looking for a word before the show. I said I'm jealous about that, but I feel like there's a negative connotation about jealousy. It's not really because I'm really happy for you that you were able to do that. I wish I would have been able to do that and stay the same place for that long. This is my dear wish for the rest of the years I have in my career. But for different reasons, life did not agree with my goal of staying in a place for a long time. So I would like to, just get your perspective about that. And on top of that, because, in those 24 years, you had 3-4 titles, which is they may be even related. It seems like you pretty much had the same job for the last 24 years. So how do you make this happen? What's happening spending that many years at the company in the quote unquote same role doing the same thing?
So let's see. So when I was early in tech and IT in my 20s, I remember seeing these people that to me seemed quote old, that were probably 50 something, and I'm well past 50 something at this point. And most of these people were the people and the jobs were fairly kind of steady state, and they were not the most exciting people in the world necessarily. And so things were, and I kind of thought, okay, well, by the time I get to 50 something or 60 something, my career will be steady state and boring and nothing new is happening. And instead, I was super, super fortunate to hook up with Amazon and then with AWS very, very early in their trajectories of success and growth. And even though I've had the same title and done the same basic kinds of DevRel, functions of talking and blogging and videos and so forth, the breadth and depth of the portfolio has changed incredibly from effectively really simple services. When we launched the Simple Queue service and S3 and EC2, within a couple hours, I could look at those APIs and look at the service and use them and have a pretty good grasp of what they were about and how customers could use them. But then, toward the end of my 20 years on the blog, which I wrapped up that at the end of 2024, the services were much more complex. Individual services had hundreds of pages of APIs. They were still foundational services, but they also tied into other parts of the ecosystem. There was often, they'd use other services. They would have partner aspects. They would have add-on capabilities. So the overall complexity grew a lot, and representing those complex services, but while still making them, finding out what is the core, what is the simple, easy to describe part, has always been really fun. That process of taking complexity and squeezing it. So, okay, what is the essential thing that I can just use to understand this in my own way? And to me, a lot of the communication that we do in DevRel, we're almost explaining it to ourselves, right? And until the point where we fully grasp what it is that we want to be talking about, I think we're going to have this incredible imposter syndrome that we're oh my gosh, I'm ultimately just the marketing person and I don't fully understand this. And so you have to always let your tech side take over and say, I'm not saying anything until I really grasp this in depth, and that I've maybe built something with it, and I've used the command line, I've used the console, maybe the devs gave me a peek at the code, the architecture, to really give yourself that confidence that says, I'm not just quoting a bunch of bullet points they gave me. I'm actually I understand this pretty deeply, and I know what it is and how it works and what our customers can do with it. Getting to that point gets harder and harder with the sophistication of our industry.
It does. And also because there are so many things, because, part of the role, like, of course, you present your company externally. So you need to know about your product, or maybe in your case, maybe not all the product, because AWS has so many products that, like, it's actually, I'm pretty sure it's impossible to know everything, but at least, like, the focus you have, like, you need to be the expert, or at least know enough that, like, you're credible when you talk to people and you can have a discussion with developers about your product. But still, there's, like, your own product, but there's also, like, you need to have some knowledge about, like, external technologies and programming language and libraries. And depending on, like, again, what's your focus at a company, or depending what's your audience, there's so many things to learn. And I think it was always like that, but as you said, I think it's getting worse, and not always a positive way. Like, there's, like, now so many choices, so many things to learn, that, like, it's not always easy to follow up. I mean, for me, I decided, like, I learned the hard way that, like, I wanted to know everything, because I'm a curious person. I love to learn. This is also part of why I love that job, because even if you stay for 20 something years at the company, the product changed, the technology changed. You need to continue you need to always learn new thing, which is one of the things I love with DevRel. But I wanted to learn about everything, but I realized it's like, no, it's not possible. So now what I basically do is, like, if I need something for my job, or if it's something that I think I should learn, I basically force myself to set time aside by submitting a talk about that topic at a conference, or promising something, like, or I just go internally and I tell someone, like, hey, I'm going to publish a video about that. So now I need to learn about it enough that, like, yeah, I'm maybe not the best expert in the topic, but, like, I know enough to be able to deliver quality and be respectful to either people time that's going to be in the room, or the viewer that's going to watch my video. So that's kind of like my way right now to learn stuff. Kind of like, yeah, putting me in a place where, like, my ego will take over, and I'm like, yeah, now I need to learn, because I want to look like a fool when I'm going to talk about that topic.
Put yourself into a corner. You have to put that constraint on yourself and say, this talk is coming up in 6 weeks, and I don't know anything about this, but I'd better make sure I know enough. And I think I totally agree with that strategy. You also have to know the boundaries of what you know, and to not ever be shy or embarrassed to say, amazing question, and it's beyond that boundary. And you never, ever, ever make up anything in this job. Like, your personal credibility, your entire reputation, at least the way I see it, is, like, all your credibility is, like, bounced on that one question. And the first time you give some imaginary made up answer that you thought was good enough, your entire stack of credibility can just crumble and will never be rebuilt. So you have to have that self-sensibility of, like, oh, great question, I don't know, let's talk offline and we can research it together, or I'll take that back to my team and we'll find it out. And just making really clear you actually don't know everything about everything, because it's just impossible. And but we're often put in that situation. I get put into that situation by the press all the time, of, like, compare and contrast this part of your product versus these 3 other parts of your competitors' products, and in tremendous detail, with, go into depth on these 7 features that we all launched yesterday afternoon. And wonderful. Sure, of course.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm going to say it maybe in a vulgar way, but, like, I always say that, like, for me, I have a no bullshit policy. Exactly. And it's really important for my job. It's also part of why I lost a job or two, because I was asked to say things that, like, I disagree, didn't fit within my values, or lie about a product. And don't get me wrong, if we have a feature that is not, like, could be better, I'm not going to go on the rooftop. I'm not going to yell, like, that feature is not good. But, like, if I have a discussion with people, or if someone asks me a question, I'm going to be honest. I'm like, yeah, maybe, like, we need to work a little more on that feature. And, like, yes, we have that issues. We know it's there. It was not a priority. Sorry about that. You need to be honest. And again, I also learned, I was lucky at the beginning when I started, that job. Ego was huge. I think I think it's nearly something that could be problematic with that job, because you become the expert, you become the personality, the that friendly, approachable, technical, social face of the company. You represent the company. You're on a stage. You're seen as an expert. And depending where you go, like some people, when you're a public speaker, you're like yeah, the whole powerful person. So when I started that job, and I was like, oh my God, the ego was so big. So I wanted to answer everything, and I did that for maybe my first talk, and I basically invented answers. And I was lucky enough that it didn't rule me. People like understood that I was just started. And I learned the hard way to like, no, I cannot do that. Like, it's so much better. You're way more credible to say like, I do not know that. It may be a little bit hard for the ego at first, because you're like, oh, you wish you would be able to answer everyone's questions. But now what I learned, again, the hard way, is that I need to know enough that, again, I have that credibility. I can talk about my topic. I can answer most of the questions, but like, it does not mean that I have the answer to everything. So most of the time, as you said, I either say like, hey, I do not have the answer. Let me try it, or let me test it, or let me go back to the engineering team. And like, they're more brilliant than me. They're going to have the answer, and I'm going to get back to the person. That's the important part, though. Like, after you said, like, I do not have the answer, follow up with people, because they still need that answer. They still want to have their questions answered. So, meet them after, during the break time, send them, like, ask them to ping you on LinkedIn or Twitter, but like, follow up with people. But yeah, never, credibility is important, which is also, I mean, people ask me, like, you work in tech, you're being paid to do all those things. I'm selling a little bit myself, in the sense that, like, I feel like that job is not like any other jobs, where like I go to my desk and what I'm being paid for is for the output. Part of it is for the output that I do. Like, I speak at an event, I do a video, I do a blog post, but it's also, and I was going to talk about myself in the third person, but like, it's a little bit like I'm selling Fred. Like, I'm right. Like, it's my personality, it's who I am. It's my values. It's my activities on the web. It's like how do you, like, you've been doing that for a long time too. Like, I mean, you're Jeff from AWS. Like, when people see you, you're the AWS person. You're like what's your Vice President and Chief Evangelist. Like, people know you like that. Now you're really tied to AWS, but AWS is tied to you too, to your personality, to who you are. Like, how do I don't know. I don't think I have a question. I don't know. You probably have.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a really, I think, unique and very precarious situation in the sense that our employer has given us this incredible opportunity to do things that make us well known. The job of the goal of the job is not to become well known. The goal is to actually get information out to your audiences. If they happen to like it and they happen to say great things about you and they want to come up and say hello and chat and take selfies afterward, that is incredibly awesome side effects of doing a great job with them. That is for sure not the goal of the job. I've met people who think that the goal is to make themselves popular or famous or something. That is a wonderful way to just fall flat on your face in DevRel. So we're effectively building up an identity, and this identity is likely going to last and be attached to us through the rest of our working life. We're somewhat, what's the right way? We're almost renting this identity out to our employer.
Yep.
In a mostly positive way, and we're saying, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to do this thing. My name's attached to everything I do, and we're getting compensated for that. But that also means that our reputation is going to long outlast any particular job that we might happen to have at the time. And if the employer at some point says, hey, we know that X is actually this situation, but you need to go out and say X minus 36, and it's actually different in some different, like, 5-dimensional space than reality, you have to push back and say, it's me talking here. It's not the company. And it's easy to anonymously just insist on bad messaging. Yeah. The reality is the audience knows you better than you know yourself. And when you say something that isn't authentic, the audience is like, well, that doesn't sound like Jeff. That sounds like some corporate person told him to say that. And like, if we don't personally feel authentic saying these things, we shouldn't. And when I started blogging for AWS in 2004, I of course wanted to get all the information, all the facts straight, but within a year or so, it got to the point where I'd be wandering through an event or wandering through Seattle, and someone might come up and say, "Hey, are you the Jeff with that writes the AWS blog?" And the first couple times it happened, I was actually a tiny bit apprehensive because I didn't know what the second part of the question would be.
Yeah.
And in my head, I built up this weird fear that if I ever misled my audience in some way, that their startup was going to crash and burn because I told them how to use the service wrong, or something I told them about the service was not 100% correct. They're like, so I read your blog post and I did all the things, and guess what? All my data is gone. And I actually built this little bit of a fear of, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I never, ever mislead my audience. And this turned out to be a really positive thing because I would always insist on access to all of the documentation, all the tech details, direct ability to use all the services and experience it for myself, and to not just say, well, this is what they told me about it. This is my actual live experience I've gained from this. And that was like a really interesting, like a fear that turned into a superpower effectively of, okay, because I'd never want to be accused of hurting someone's startup because of misinformation. I just became maniacally fact driven of just making sure that I fully understood everything. And there were times I go back to the team, and because the team would say, describe it as if this is the way it works, but really there's a little bit of kind of like fudge factor behind the scenes. I'm like, no. Tell me what really happens there. I'll find a comfortable way to explain it.
Yep.
And sometimes there are ways you can take these weird situations and say, okay, here's what we're launching. It's not perfect yet, but we've got some things we're still working on. Here's what it's good for. Here's some things that's going to be better for later on. Just be super honest with developers. Developers do have finely tuned BS detectors. They're really, really good at that.
Yep.
And they know when you're being brutally honest, even to your own detriment, right? I think we have to do that sometimes. Say, look, here's this really, really cool thing for these use cases. We're aware of these others. We're just not ready for those yet. Totally fine thing to say. They'll thank you earlier versus condemning you later when you misled them.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to go. And I know it may sound counterintuitive business-wise to basically tell someone like, hey, our product is great, but not for your use case, or at least not right now. And in a business-driven, I'm not saying we're not business-driven, but like, let's say someone who's more like, sales-driven, like we need those customers and we need that amount of money. It may seem like it's not a good way to go, but I also firmly believe that like DevRel can have we can have quick wins, but I think most of what we do, because it's around the human, because it's about building relationship, it's most of the time it's medium to long term. So that person you just told like, hey, my product may not be the best for you right now. What happened in like 6 months when you have the new feature that they were missing? Like they were taught about you and they didn't use your product and had a bad experience because it was not fit for them, or they started a new project, or they moved to a new job, or they have like a friend that like has the exact need of your product. And because you do not bullshit them, you do not lie to them, you are honest with them, you build that trust, you continue to build that relationship with people. And for me, that's the way to go. I always say and I say that with a lot of love, but the developer audience is a special audience. And I mean, and I say that with a lot of love. I'm a developer, but my job would not exist if it was not a case. Like we could just use like the usual traditional marketing and we would be able to connect with developers and be successful. No, there's a different approach where exactly like everything we just talked so far is the approach that we need to take with developer, or we need to stay away from because it does not resonate with the audience. And they're allergic to sales. They're allergic to being forced about using things. They're allergic to bullshit and lying. Like, just be honest with me and let's have a talk from like developer to developers about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So I basically, again, I said a lot of words to say, basically I agree with what you said.
I also like that you pointed out there, what we're doing here is very long-term. And, I often think of it, I like to grow things, and I've always got some seeds being sprouted, and I got some plants growing in the backyard and some flowers and some veggies and things like that. You can't accelerate that process. And you're doing things today that are going to have results in a month or 3 months or 6 months, or if I was like growing trees, right? If I want to have a forest in 20 years, I need to plant all those little sprout trees now and nurture them for 10 years or 20 years. DevRel is actually that same basic model where we want a bunch of developers using whatever our offering is 1, 5, 10 years into the future. We have to just go through the process. It does. You don't go from 0 to infinity right away.
Yep.
Those are like these super rare cases that they're only well known because they're so rare. The more reality is we inform people and they experiment a bit and they try things, and maybe it's right for them now. Maybe they say, you know what, I'm going to learn some more and I'll come back in 6 months or a year. They grow in their career. Maybe they change jobs and they're like, oh, that thing that Fred told me about last year wasn't quite right that time, but it's improved. I've changed. I've learned. My job's new. Maybe it's relevant to me now. And so those, and you can't measure this. You can't measure the fact that a time you stopped to chat with a developer 5 years ago, even though you're late for your talk, that resulted in a big win. You can't capture that. You can't document it. You can't put it on your annual review, but it actually makes a huge difference.
It does, and I'm sorry for the people who watch the show quite frequently, because I'm gonna tell a small story that I told before, but because you're there, it's just maybe thought about that story. My first job as a developer advocate was at Microsoft, and I was doing that hackathon about Azure, and that person was like, I want to build something, but like I don't want to use Azure. I'm using AWS, but I have that issue. Can you help me? And I was like, of course. Like, if I can help you, I'm going to help you. And the guy was like, just surprised first. It was like, you work at Microsoft? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not, didn't say I don't care. Like, I care. Like, I would prefer, let's be honest, I would prefer you use Azure. But okay, this is what you need right now. I'm going to help you. And I was able to help that person. And 3 years after, they changed job. They decided to develop, like, we're launching, Windows Phone at the time, which does not exist anymore. But also a little bit later, we're launching Windows 8, and that person decided to learn the ecosystem and became one of the most prolific, Windows Phone and Windows 8 developers. And it basically told me, it's not me like bragging about like, oh, it was so good. It's because of me. Like, it basically told me like, it's because you did not reject me as like a non-Microsoft developer, because you still help me using basically a competitor, not just another technology or non-Microsoft technology, like a competitor technology. So that person entered the Microsoft ecosystem a couple of years after, and became one of the most prolific developer during that era.
Exactly.
And based on the fact that I was like, hey, part of my job is to give love to developer. I love to say that. Sometimes they're afraid when I say that, but I love to, that's my job. I'm going to help you to be successful. And again, let's be honest, I like to have a paycheck, so I hope you're going to be successful with my product. But at the end of the day, I want you to be successful because I'm building a relation with you. And again, let's be honest. Hopefully, I hope that in the future, at some point, you start to use our product, but maybe not, and that's fine too, because I'm there to help developers. So just a small story about that. Like, exactly. As you said,
you earned their trust that first time, and then much later, and this is the interesting thing is we can't measure this. We can't take those one-to-one inflection points. We can't scale that up to do it 1 million times a year, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times in marketing, it's like, okay, here's the thing we know is successful. Okay, how much money do we now need to pour into this to replicate it broadly? You can't do that. It's a lot of success in DevRel are just these incidental chats we have with a developer that change things in a fundamental way over a long period of time.
I was not even at Microsoft anymore when it started to be a Microsoft developer. So the impact I had, I was not even on the payroll anymore of Microsoft. And so it was so many years after. So the job, because again, I firmly believe that because it's about the human, because it's about the people. I always say, when, and I don't know if it makes sense, but when I was hiring a developer advocate, I basically told people that for me, We always split things in like soft skills and hard skills, and we always put like hard skills in like being the tech, and the soft skill being like, oh, they're going to be a good communicator and stuff like that, because this is what we want in like an engineering team. But like when it comes to DevRel, like all those other things that we usually put in soft skills, I put them in hard skills, like being able to connect with people and like being able to communicate with people and having like compassion or empathy toward like what's happening in people's life, like all those things that you wish, like as an employer, everybody like at a company would have, no matter their role. But it's always like, oh, it's a bonus if they have that. Like when it comes to DevRel, because it's the human part again. Like for me, it is a hard skill. Like you can learn the tech. Like you may not know our own product. It's fine. Like if you're used to learn about technology, you're going to learn about it. Obviously, perfect candidate would have both, but it's not always the case. At least if you have like those soft skills that for me are hard skills, because again, it's about the human.
Totally agree. And kind of related to that, when I go to a conference and I am lucky enough to be able to speak, I've seen way too many speakers will show up an hour before the event, throw their laptop on the podium, give the talk, and then they're just like out of there as soon as they possibly can. I always view those talks as an opportunity to invite people to come and chat with me later. If at all possible, if there's space, I love to sneak in the back of other people's talks and learn as well. And people are like, why are you there? You supposedly know everything already. It's like, well, first, I don't know everything already. I always love to learn. I love to see how other people communicate and organize and present. And I want to be part of this. And I can only, when I go to another country and the talks are in a language I can not always understand, it's okay. I'll figure out more than zero. And maybe I'll learn a vocabulary word or two, or I'll just be there and absorb it in some way and figure it out later. But it's just like that, immersing yourself with the devs is always worth doing.
Yeah, especially, I mean, like there's a lot of speakers that are not DevRel or developer advocates or evangelists, but like, especially if your role is that, like, please, like, unless your schedule is just like you cannot for that event, stay there. Like for me, it's all about the people. Like my talk, don't get me wrong, my talk help the business, give visibility. Even if I don't talk about my product, I'm still Fred right now from Tiny MC, so I still represent the company. It's still beneficial for the company for me to be on stage and give me like tremendous visibility. It's great. But if I just go there for my talk, I think I'm losing most of the return on investment that I couldn't get from the event.
The networking, the connecting, and the tiny bits of feedback. There's everybody you talk to, they probably have like a question or a bit of feedback that never quite rose to the level of I'd better track down someone and send them an email. But at the point when you're chatting, like, oh, by the way, have you ever thought about this? Or I could really use this feature. Or when is this service coming to my local area? Capturing those little just tidbits of customer feedback is so worthwhile. Or just understanding like life is different in different parts of the world. And, we, in lots of our, where we live, it's really easy to get a credit card and use credit cards to pay for services. Well, there's parts of the world where credit cards barely exist, or there is a family credit card, or the price of a service compared to, everyday income is insane. And, people will confide in you those kinds of things when you're face to face and you've already, gotten to know them a bit in ways you won't learn remotely. It's not statistics. It's not some like book you look up of like facts per country. You got to be there and just be there in the middle of everything to really get it.
Yeah, no, super important. Unrelated to what you just said, because also we've been talking for a while, and I'm pretty sure we could talk for another for a long time. I have a question that I ask most people because, developer relation can be really different from one company to the other. What I always say is that, like, if you have like a title of like a software engineer, you do the same job mostly everywhere. What's going to be different is that the product or the industry you're going to work on and the programming language or frameworks you're going to use, but that at the end you build software. When it comes to developer relation, it can be quite different from one place to the other. And I know we're kind of like definition of DevRel online, but it's still for the benefits of people that don't know you. What's a vice president and chief evangelist at AWS? Like, what's your job? What are you doing? Basically, I know there is no day-to-day in DevRel, but like what your job looks like.
So a lot of my days right now, there's planning for whatever's my next couple of events. So I've got a calendar for events, and that's like logistics of like travel and figuring out, okay, for every trip, I have a methodology where I'll book a couple conferences for a city or two, and then I contact the local office and I'll say, hey, I'm going to be in your city. How else can I be useful? Can I meet with employees? Can I meet with customers? Can I meet with some press? What else can we do together? Sometimes they'll do an internal fireside. Sometimes we'll do some kind of a mini event for some of our customers. So my goal is always to like make my trips super worthwhile for me. So there's always planning. There's the catch up from the last trip, and there's a lot of learning day to day. Always trying out some new services and trying to see what they're all about. Social media postings. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Has been my network of choice for the last while. Some mentoring, some reviewing of plans and documents. A lot of random connecting of people and opportunities. Maybe 2 hours a day of, hey, I saw this interesting role. Can you help me to learn more about it? Can you refer me? Can you give me a sense of how to apply?
I'm just
so
sorry.
A lot of connecting turns out to be part of my job.
Yeah, I was like, I sorry, you stopped like you took a pose where we were saying, and I don't know if it was because my face was doing a lot of expression, because I'm like I'm someone who cannot lie, or because just my face will say things. And I was just so happy that you said that, and also that you said like about 2 hours, which like is long, like it's a lot of time in a work day or in a normal work day. And I was like, that's beautiful to hear that from. Let's be honest. I mean, like you work at AWS, you have a VP title, like you're high in the chart, and like having someone like you who just confirm also that like, no, that's something that is important. But like doing that, it's really hard to translate in like, in the KPI spreadsheet, or like, it's really hard, but like there is so much benefit. Like I spend time to do one-on-one with people, and like just basically maybe not regular mentorship, but like, hey, ask me any questions you have. I've been doing that for a long time. I don't have the truth, or I don't know everything, but like if it can be helpful, I'm going to do it. Putting people in connection, like in relation. I have a good network. I think it's important, like people help me in my career. It's important to help other people. And it's not like let's be honest, it's part of like who I am as a person, but also I think it's important for the role, being able to do that. Because again, you help other people. You're not just like trying to take from people. You're there to help other people. And that's one way to do that. So just hearing you, so that's why my face was lighting up and like doing all those like
there's a lot of inherently unscalable things in our jobs here. Like everybody's always looking for the thing you do once that magically reaches millions of people. But a lot of what we have to do here is ultimately 1-to-1 or 1 to just a few. And there aren't really any good ways to scale most of this without depersonalizing it or just making it worthless.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if I just have a new boss who started 2 weeks ago. And, it's always like, you never know where it's going to go. It can go well or it can not go well for different reasons. We only had one-on-one so far. And, I was so happy that when I said that, yes, I can use a little bit of AI in my role. It can help me with some of the tasks, but it cannot replace me. And it's not because I'm so good. It's just because my job is being me. Like people connect with me.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so if I replace myself, as much as like Gen AI could do a good job to try to replace me, it needs to be like what I'm thinking. It's about like how I phrase things. It's about who I am as a person, for the better or worse. Like the company who hire me, they're stuck with me. So I was like, authenticity is super important, and it means that like there's little things that I can scale, but they're like most of what I do, it's impossible to scale. Whether there's AI or better tool out there, whatever, like, again, it can help me with some little things, but like, it cannot replace me. And maybe I'm being delusional here, but I was just so happy that like my new boss was like, yeah, I agree with that. Your job is about like authenticity. It's about like, connecting with people. And it is difficult or nearly impossible to scale, but there's a benefits around that. So again, coming back to what you said about like, connecting with people, and like there are things that you cannot scale, but it's also important to do those things. Like, let's be honest, Jeff, we know each other, but like, I like you, but we're not also best friends. Like we've been connected for 10 years. We're closer to acquaintance than any other things. We've met once in a while. We've met in person only once. My show is not popular. And you're the chief evangelist of AWS. You could have said like, Fred, I have better things to do with my time than going on a little show. But you were like, no, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about DevRel. That's going to be like, hopefully, and still true, that's going to be a good time we're going to have together, chat about those things. That's beneficial. If I want to be honest, I would have invited you even if you didn't have like that visibility, because I like you as a person. But on top of that, it's nice that you were able to, reshare things on social media about the show. So I don't know if you understand where I'm going. Sometimes it's really clear in my mind and it's not when my mouth starts to do noises. But, doing those things, I think it's part of the job.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've had so many interesting situations where if you try to like put like a meter or a gauge on something and say what is the actual like measured like magnitude or value of this, you don't really know. And I think that doing it is the more important thing than saying, well, I only pick the I get invited to conferences sometimes and they're like, oh, we're very sorry, but there's only 30 people going to be here. Well, the way I look at it, those are like the right 30 people. If 30 people decide to show up somewhere to hear about something new, those are the energized early adopters that I would really love to have the opportunity to be in front of. So I've many times traveled halfway around the world to speak to 30 people.
You are giving me so much pieces of videos that like in the future, if I have issues with the new manager, I can just say like, Jeff said that and point them because, yeah, because I mean, I believe all that, like, of course, like more people see what I do, more people see my faces out there, more people connect with me. It's better because I connect with more people, but it's also a lot about quality versus quantity. So as you said, like if I have the only quote unquote only 30 people in my room, but like it's 30 people that like they are my target audience and they're excited about what I'm going to talk about and they connect with me and I build something with them. Fantastic. Like it's wonderful. So it's also why I do the same thing. Like people invite me and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I just started that podcast and I don't have that many people. I'm like, oh, I just do that for fun. And like, there's not a lot of viewers. I'm like, will we have fun? Can I just talk about things that I'm passionate about? Will I connect with a new person, which is you, the host? Fine. If my schedule let me do it in the time frame that I want to do it, I'm going to be more than happy to do that. And I always try to quote unquote sell that to the business. Is like, no, that's still beneficial, even if it's not like 10,000 of people that are viewing that live stream or whatever what I'm doing.
Exactly. Like back in 2010 or 2011, I was asked to go to Tokyo to speak at a brand new AWS user group that was just forming there. And they're like, yeah, a few folks will probably show up. And I go there, there's like definitely less than 40 people for this brand new AWS user group. But that user group, which is now called JAWS UG, for J for Japan, AWS, and then UG user group, is now tens of thousands of people across Japan. So was that trip worth it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, because we work for a company that sells stuff. So at the end of the day, people pay us for usage or using our software or using our services. But it's also important in that role. And I think we can end the discussion on that because, again, we can talk forever and I want to be respectful of your schedule. But, where was I going with that? Like, it's important that we're not always in a relationship of like, we try to get or just like get things for us. Like, it's important to give back. So now that's a great story. But like, even if the user group would have been like that successful and it would still be like 40 or 50 people, I think they're still important. I think it's still important to connect with them and be there and like, oh no, we're a big company and I'm a person who have like a lot of my calendar, but I still can dedicate time to, go meet you and encourage you and support you and be there for you, because what you do is important because you're passionate about, because this is something you're excited about. Obviously, we cannot always do that because, it's just a matter of like, we have everybody has like 24 hours in a day, but being able to do those kind of things, I think it's important too. So again,
For sure.
all those words to say, I agree with what you said.
Back in 2013, I actually did an AWS road trip across the entire US. I flew to Boston, and I had carefully planned out stops so that I could drive 300 to 400 miles a day and then speak at a user group every weekday night for 3 solid weeks. It was so fun. It was so fun to get out to all these user groups. It was, and this is a decade plus ago. So it was like a Linux user group or a PHP user group, or maybe a brand new AWS user group just starting. Some of them were 30 people. Some of them were several hundred people, but it was like, you know what? Oftentimes simply showing up was valued and respected. And then you get to the door and like, oh my gosh, you're here. Isn't that so amazing? It's so awesome. And like, I didn't do anything yet. They're like, you actually are here. That's a big deal for us. Like, sometimes these groups said, no one's bothered to come speak to us ever before from outside of our own state. So you're here. Thank you so much. Interesting lesson there.
It is. So no, I think that's important to do that. So on that note, is there anything else you would like to say before we close that episode?
Well, I've certainly enjoyed being here. I think that making really clear what DevRel is all about and making sure that it's really clear it is a really fun and worthwhile occupation that's somehow sitting between a couple other occupations, but it is a real job and a real career. And those of us in it are almost universally happy to talk to others to help you figure out what it's all about and help you to get ready to have a good career here as well. So if you're interested in DevRel, look us up and we're happy to chat.
Yeah, and especially right now. I mean, like when you started, even when I started, DevRel was not that popular. It was mostly big companies. Now, like even startups, like I've worked at startups where they did not even have like a full-fledged engineering team, but had a product at least that I could start to talk about, and they were looking for developer advocates. So like there's a understanding a little more, not always, like about what is the role, why it's important for a business to have like DevRel people. So which means that there is a lot more opportunities out there. So connect with Jeff, connect with me if you're curious about DevRel, how to start in that role. We'll be more than happy, and I would say that for basically any guests that have been on the show, I think they will all be happy to chat with you and share their experience and share some advices about like, how we can start in that role. But it's a lot of fun. It's I've been doing that for 14 years now, and I have no plan to change to another type of role for different reasons. But anyway, on that note, thanks again, Jeff, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure again talking to you. And thanks everybody who watched us live. Thanks to the people also who watched the recording. And I'll see you next week for another episode of the DevRel Show. So thanks everyone.
Great to be here.
Have a good day.